Amen. And I almost just like walked out the door and just dismissed after those kids were done. We could have just kind of called it quits right there. And so, hey, my name is Bryan Smith. Like Dallas said, I'm one of the pastors here at Doxology Bible Church. So excited that you're here with us this morning. If you have a Bible with you, you can go ahead and open it up to Ecclesiastes chapter 11. Ecclesiastes chapter 11. If you haven't been with us the past few weeks, we've been, since really Easter, studying through the book of Ecclesiastes, which was written by a man by the name of King Solomon. He was one of the wealthiest, wisest, most powerful people who's ever lived, and this is kind of his memoirs on his life, so we're trying to learn through that. We're actually coming to the end of it. We're going to wrap it up next week, but we'll be in Ecclesiastes chapter 11 this morning. While you're finding your way there, in 1888, a man named Alfred, woke up to some pretty surprising news. Now, I don't know what Alfred's, typical daily routine looked like, but let's assume that it's somewhat, kind of like ours. Let's say he woke up that morning, maybe grabbed a cup of coffee, went down to get himself some breakfast, and, he didn't have a phone to scroll through or anything like we do, so he did what they did back in 1888. He got a newspaper, so he got his newspaper for that day, and he was reading through the newspaper and just kind of eating his breakfast, when all of a sudden, he got to the back and he looked at the obituaries, and he saw a name and a picture that he recognized. His own. He saw his own name and his own picture right there at the head of the obituary section. Apparently what had happened, Alfred, he was kind of famous at that day, and his brother had actually passed away the day before, And so the local newspaper just kind of assumed that it was him, wrongly assumed that it was him, and they printed and they ran his obituary in the paper that day. So he's sitting there, and that's surprising enough, to kind of open up and just see that the world thinks you're dead, But he opens up, he starts to look at that obituary, and what was surprising to him, more than the fact that his obituary was there, what really surprised him was what his obituary said, So next to his picture, next to his name, was this headline right here. It said, "The merchant of death is dead." The merchant of death is dead. And then the first sentence of his obituary said this. It said, "The man who became rich by finding ways to kill more people faster than ever died yesterday." And so a little bit of context to why they wrote that about him. Alfred, he was a brilliant chemist, engineer, inventor in his day. He had over 355 different patents in his lifetime, but the invention that he was most famous for, that everybody kind of recognized him for, was dynamite. Alfred, he was the inventor of dynamite, and he originally created dynamite as a way to make mining and construction safer and more efficient, but it didn't take long for the government to realize that dynamite, it could be used to make something else, weapons. So Alfred, he became very, 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 very wealthy, through the production and sale of explosives, So hence the name, the merchant of death. And so he's sitting there and he's just seeing this, looking through the paper, seeing his obituary, and he is seeing what the world believes is the final word on his life. What is it? The man who became rich by finding more ways to kill more people faster than ever before. The final word on his life. And he's just kind of sitting there realizing that somehow, somewhere along the way, his life told a story that he never intended for it to tell. And for Alfred, it was this clarifying moment of regret. None of us want to find ourselves there, do we? Like we don't want to wake up one day, either come to the near of our life. As we think about the life we live, we somehow realize the life we live, it tells a story that we never intended it for it to tell. We never want to wake up and just look back with regret on the life that we lived here on this earth. We don't want to think about that. And so how do we keep that from happening to us? We don't want to realize that we live a life that we regret. And so that's kind of the question that we're going to wrestle with today. And Solomon's going to help us kind of wrestle with here in Ecclesiastes chapter 11. He's going to help us answer this question right here. How do we live a life now that we won't regret later? Like, how do we live a life now that we won't regret later? And there's a lot of ways that kind of can play out in our life. How do I live with intentionality with my family now, in a way before those years start to slip through my fingers? How do I live in a way where my faith isn't always pushed to the background of my life whenever life crashes around, or whenever life gets really busy? How do I make sure that my job, okay, this thing to where I spend so much of my life invested in, how do I make sure that there's more purpose behind that than simply a paycheck? One way to think about it, how do you live your life in a way when people show up to your funeral, they don't have to tell a bunch of lies about you, okay? I've been to some of those funerals, okay, and you don't want that to be true of you. How do we keep that from happening? How do we live a life now that we won't regret later? Okay, Solomon, he's going to help us wrestle with that. If that is important to you at all, okay, if questions like that are questions that you think about at all, Solomon, he's got some advice for us this morning. Okay, he's going to show us, actually, as we kind of look here through Ecclesiastes chapter 11, he's going to show us three decisions, okay, that we can make, that will keep us and that will help us live with less regret in life. Not that we'll have no regret in life, okay, that's impossible, but he's going to show us three decisions that if we kind of embrace them and we live into them and we lean into them, we can have as little regret, less regret in this life than we would otherwise. So let's kind of see what Solomon can show us. Three decisions, okay? How do we live a life now that we won't regret later? The first kind of decision that Solomon's going to show us here, it's one that he's been talking about all along, if you've been here, okay? So the first piece of advice, the first decision he would say is that we need to be people who enjoy the life God has given. Okay, that's his first way that he would say that how we can avoid regret in our life, to be people who enjoy the life God has given. Kind of read with me Ecclesiastes chapter 11, beginning in verse 7. He says this, he says, light is sweet. Light is sweet, and it pleases the eyes to see the sun. Okay, to get up. You got up today. You saw the sun another day. Okay, you were here another day. He says that's a good thing. It's a good thing that you got another day on this earth. He says it pleases the eyes to see the sun. However many years anyone may live, let them enjoy them all. Solomon says there's this life that we have. Okay, the fact that we got to get up another day, that's a good thing. Okay, and there are a lot of good things that we can and we should enjoy in this life. So Solomon says enjoy it. Okay, you get another day in this life, make the most of it, enjoy it. He says, but because something else has come, he says, let them remember the days of darkness, for they will be many. Everything to come is meaningless. He says, hey, we wake up, we should embrace life. We should look for the things that we can find to enjoy. Not every day is going to be perfect. There's going to be hard times that come. But listen, when those moments come to where life kind of brings you things, to where you can enjoy it, he says, do it. Okay, we should be the people who kind of have the posture towards life where we wake up and say, good morning, Lord, not good Lord, it's morning. Okay, I've said that plenty of times. He says that should be the posture that we have towards life. He says we should enjoy this life that God has given. And next, he's going to show us how to do that. How can we really, really enjoy to the maximum the life that God has given? Verse 9, he says, you who are young, be happy while you are young, and let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. So he's given some advice specifically to some young people right here. Now, youth is relative, isn't it? You know, I look out here, and so, you know, probably about half of you, you look at me as old. About half of you, you look at me as young, okay? And so I'm in the middle somewhere. And so that's why they call it middle age, okay? That's where I'm at right now. And so it's kind of relative. He says, hey, with the time that you have, he says, enjoy it. Enjoy this life that you had. He says, follow the ways of your heart. And whatever your eyes see, he says there's some things in this life that you should experience and try to experience them, run after them, experience those things in this life. My mom has been staying with us this past week to kind of help with this kids' Bible club. She came home, so they've been coming home each night. She came down from Oklahoma, and she's brought my two kids home with her each night this week. And she, on her way, every time she came, she stopped at this McDonald's right on here on her way home. And so my kids came home each night with blue slushies. Okay, the first night they come home with blue slushies at like 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, not that big a deal. But then she shows up night number 2 with blue slushies, and everybody's kind of covered in blue slushies. I'm like, Mom, you can't give them blue slushies every night. She goes, why not? Why can't I? And I was like, I didn't have an answer. I was like, you're right. It's like, why? She goes, hey, I've only got so much time with them. I want them to look back on those memories with me as pleasant ones, as happy ones. I'm going to buy them slushies every time I'm here. And I birthed you, so you can be okay with that, okay? And so we're going to go. And so I was like, you're right. But he says, enjoy life. Okay, there's things in this life that we should experience. He says, follow the joys of your heart. Explore those. There's things in this life for us to enjoy. But there's also some things in this life that we should avoid. So he says, follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see, but know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. So then, banish anxiety from your heart and cast off the troubles of your body, for youth and vigor are meaningless. So Solomon says, hey, there's some things we should pursue, experiences. We should pursue this life. We should enjoy it. But there's also some things in this life that we should avoid. Okay, God he wants us to enjoy this life. Okay, but he in his wisdom knows the best way for us to do that. Okay, so he has set some boundaries. Okay, some boundaries in our life, some rules, some commands, some regulations that should govern the way that we live our life. And he says life is most enjoyed when we stay inside the fence. Okay, inside the fence of the boundaries he set, rather than try to experience joy on the outside of it. I've got a dog, Sadie. I've told a lot of stories about Sadie. She is, she's a member of our family. Okay, you guys know that. My wife loves. She's my wife's favorite in our family. And so, whenever it is not 14,000 degrees outside, okay, whenever we leave for the day, especially if we're going to be gone all day long, we will leave Sadie outside. Okay, and we'll put her food and water out there. We've got a big patio she can get under. We'll leave her outside typically. Several months ago, probably a little over a year ago. We came home, and it was late. We left it early in the morning. We came home right before the sun came down, and we pull up, and we notice that the gate on the side of our house is wide open. Okay, so when we get home and we see that gate wide open, we've been there all day, what's the first thing that pops in our mind? She's gone. Our dog is gone. Sadie's gone. So we get out there, and everybody's freaking out. The kids get out of the car. Everybody's looking for her, and we're all yelling at the top of our lungs, Sadie, where are you at? And we're just kind of looking for her, and all of a sudden, here comes Sadie, just walking up her backyard, okay, and just came right up to us. She never left. All day long, that gate had been wide open all day long, and she decided to say, hey, I'm not risking it. I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay here. Like, why would she do that? Why would she choose to live as a prisoner, okay, inside the fence of our house when she had the opportunity to escape? She's a smart dog. Okay, she's a smart dog. She gets it. She knows that when she chooses to enjoy life and to live her life inside of the boundaries of our home, okay, inside of those, there's some good things that come to her. Okay, she gets food provided for her every single day. Okay, there's people, she has protection. Okay, there's people that love her and care for her whenever she decides to stay within the boundaries, okay, of what it means to live in our home. But if she was to leave, and she was to try to escape and live life outside of the boundaries of our home, she unnecessarily puts herself at risk for danger. Okay, there's coyotes running around in our neighborhood. Okay, she's not a fighter. She's got a lot of bark and no bite. Okay, she's not going to hold her own. Okay, runs a risk of cars running over her. There's people who could hurt her. When she gets outside of the established boundaries to live within our home, she puts herself in danger. But when she chooses to enjoy life within the boundaries that we set, it both protects and it prospers her life. And that's the same thing with God. His commands that he gives us. He says, hey, enjoy life. But I designed life. Okay, and I know the best way to enjoy it. I know the way to where you're going to maximize that. And that comes when you choose to live life within the boundaries that I've established. So he says, hey, how do we have less risk, or how do we have less regret in this life? He says, enjoy life. Be people that pursue joy. Live joyfully, but live responsibly. Live responsibly. He's put those boundaries there to protect us. So how do we have less regret? How do we live a life where we have less regret in our life? Number one, Solomon says, hey, enjoy the life God has given. And two, he's going to say, hey, that number two right here, he says, enjoy the life God has given. And two, remember the God who gave it. Okay, we enjoy the life God has given. And two, we remember the God who gave it. Chapter 12, verse 1, Solomon says, remember your Creator. Okay, remember your Creator. Okay, that's what to do. Okay, that's the exhortation. That's the what. So why would he tell them that? Remember your Creator. Okay, is he just afraid that they're going to kind of one day wake up and forget that God exists? Like, why would he say this? To say, remember your Creator. It's not really about memory when he tells them here to remember your Creator. What he's telling them to do is he's saying, hey, take God from the back of your mind and move him to the front of your mind. Okay, remember him from the back of your mind to the front of your mind. Think about God in a way that inspires you, that motivates you, moves you, and affects the way that you live your life. Remember your Creator. I'm going to put your Texas history to the test right here. We've got some transplants, okay? I'm a transplant. I didn't grow up in Texas. I didn't have Texas history growing up. And so in the year 1883, okay, maybe you've been there. In the year 1883, several Texas soldiers, they made their final stand, okay, in a battle, their final stand at a mission in San Antonio called the Alamo. Okay, several of us have been to the Alamo before. I went. It was okay. Like it's like 30 minutes. Like okay, it was okay. We went. We saw it. I don't know if we'll go back, but they made their final stand at the Alamo. Okay, all of these soldiers, and it was this act of bravery. They stood there. They held their ground. They didn't retreat, and every one of them died. Okay, every one of them died. Well, a couple weeks after that, General Sam Houston was leading another group of soldiers in a battle in this war. And what was his rallying cry for these soldiers before he led them off into battle? Texas people, what was it? Remember the Alamo. Remember the Alamo. Now, did he think that they just forgot that happened 2 weeks ago? To where their friends died in that battle? Did he think that they forgot that it existed? No. He's saying bring it from the back of your mind to the front of your mind. Like let the memory of what happened there, let it change, let it affect the way that you live, let it affect the way that you fight today. Move it from the back of your mind to the front of your mind. Remember, he says, remember your Creator. That's what Solomon's saying. He's not saying, hey, I'm afraid you're going to forget that he exists. He's saying, here's what I want you to do. If you want to have less risk or less regret in your life, do this. Center your life. Okay, center your life around the one who gave you life. Remember your Creator. Center your life around your Creator. That's what we do. But when do we do it? Okay, is it kind of when I'm young, when I'm old? Like when do I center my life around the Creator? He says this, remember your Creator when in the days of your youth. Before, and notice that word. If you're someone who circles something in your Bible, circle that word right there. Before, in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I will find no pleasure in them. We can kind of get caught, don't get caught up on that word young right there, okay? All of us here today, listen, you are as young, I don't know if you thought about this, you are as young today as you are ever going to be for the rest of your life, okay? Today, you are as young as you are ever going to be for the rest of your life. And so really the emphasis of what he's talking about there is that word before. Okay, it's going to show up again and again and again and again. He says, hey, while you still have time, as you still have opportunity, make the decision to center your life around God. To center your life around God. Let him be the central thing that influences and motivates the way that you live your life while you have time. While you have opportunity, do it now. Before I was a pastor, I actually worked with college students. For 17 years, Ashley and I, we worked for this college ministry. I would always have these conversations with these college students, and a lot of them was like, I was just kind of like talking to them about Jesus and trying to like challenge them to follow Jesus and give their life to follow Jesus. And typically, the response that I would get is, yeah, but I'm in college, like later. Like I'll do that. Hey, after I graduate, after I get out of college and start my career when I'll have so much more time after I like start a career, I'll start following after Jesus then. I'll center my life around God then. And I did this long enough where I would run back into a lot of these men and women, and I'd say, hey, you said when you were in college, like, hey, later when I get out of college, I'm gonna get serious about God then. I'm gonna center my life around God then. But like, it doesn't look like it's happened yet. Like what's going on? Like, well, I got engaged and like we're planning the wedding, but hey, after that's done, after the wedding's over and the honeymoon's over, I want to get serious about God then. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start then. And then it's, you get married, and then it's like, oh, but we just had kids, okay? But once we're out of this stage, when we get out of this stage, okay, and they're in school and we can sleep more, like that's when it's going to happen for us. We're going to center our life. We're going to get serious about God whenever our kids start school. And they start school, and then it's, they've got homework, and they've got games, and we've got recitals, and we've got all of these things going on. Once they get out of that, once they get to college, that's going to be the time. Okay, that's going to be the time. I'm going to center my life around God. Then I want to get serious with him about them, but then they're out and it's like, oh, my career is really kind of taking off right now, and we got to travel to see our kids, and after they get out of college, when we get out of this next season, that's going to be the time. We're going to get serious and we're going to follow God then, but then grandkids come. Okay, and I got to plan my whole life around my grandkids and being able to see them, and it's just something else and something else and something else until you find yourself at your funeral. And it never came. And listen, one of the things that God is just really showing me right now, that day, to where our life is just not going to be busy, okay? To where we're going to have enough time to kind of have Jesus fit in some segment of our life. Listen, that day is never going to come. The busyness of life is just busy. That's just life, okay? That's just life. And Jesus, he's not looking to take just a little corner of it anyways. He's saying, center your life around me. And what I'm afraid is going to happen to me sometimes, and what I fear for a lot of us in the church today, is we're so busy and we keep waiting for that day to come that it never does. And we never experience the joy of what it means, of what a joy of truly following after Jesus can really bring us. So Solomon says, remember your Creator now, while you can. Okay, as young as you can, as long as you have opportunity to do it, start now. There's an old Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree, today. Today. So he says, start today. Start today. Let today, from this day moving forward, you can't do anything about the past. But you can start today. From this moment, moving forward, remember your Creator. Center your life around Jesus, who he is. Get in his word for yourself and get to know him. Pray to him. Be around God's people. Leverage your life to serve others around you. He's put you where he's put you for a purpose. He has something for you to do in this world. Live into that. Tell others about Jesus and what he's done for you today. Don't put off what your Creator created for you to do today. Remember your Creator while you can. Now. Today is the day. He says, you want to have less regret in your life? Hey, enjoy the life that God has given. Do it responsibly. Remember your Creator while you can. Enjoy your life. Enjoy the life God has given. Remember the God who gave it. And finally, last one right here, the last kind of passage we're going to look at. He says, prepare for the day it's gone. Prepare for the day it's gone. So as we kind of close out here, Solomon, he's actually got a poem. He's written a poem. I don't know if he wrote it or somebody else. He just kind of put it in here. But it's a poem that talks about just kind of where life heads. Okay, it's just this poem about getting older. Okay, so see if you can kind of pick up what he's talking about here. Verse 2, he says, before. Okay, again, there's that word. He says, before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark and the clouds return after the rain. He kind of compares our life to a storm. And he says, hey, before it just the darkness overtakes you. He says, do it now. Remember your God then. And then he starts to kind of compare our bodies, okay, to a house. And he's going to kind of walk through this. Verse 3, he says, when the keepers of the house tremble. Okay, the keepers of the house, he's talking about our arms. Okay, they start to tremble. Okay, a little bit. We get weaker the older that we get. He says, and the strong men stoop. Okay, a reference to our legs. Okay, the older we get, we kind of start to stoop over. It's a little bit harder for me to straighten up, okay, every morning than it used to be. We kind of stoop the older that we get. When the grinders cease because they are few. Any thought on the grinders? Our teeth. Okay, I still remember as a kid, one of my most vivid memories of my grandma is her taking her dentures out, and it just freaked me out. I was like, oh, those things are going to go. They don't stay forever. It says, when the grinders cease, and they are few. He says, those looking through the windows grow dim, a reference to her eyes. I'm moving this like all the time to be able to read it. Those looking through the windows grow dim. When the doors to the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades, a reference to our ears. When people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint. Apparently, the older you get, the earlier you get up. My parents come over. They retired. They still wake up before 6 a.m. I'm like, why? Like, why are we doing this? Like, why are we doing this? He says, it's just kind of what happens. And so it says, when people are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets, there's kind of more things to be afraid of. Okay, the older that we get. When the almond tree blossoms, okay, an almond tree blossoms white, okay, talking about our hair turning white or turning loose, okay, in my case. And so that just kind of happens the older that we get. And the grasshopper drags itself along. Who can identify with that phrase? How many of you can say, man, I used to be able? Like, I used to be able to. Like, just kind of dragging yourself along. He says, and desire is no longer stirred. It's just like we don't have desire. Earlier last week, our dog, Sadie, she loves to like chase rabbits in our backyard. They're everywhere. And she was back there, and she's been chasing a couple. And then she's just laying. She's getting older. She's laying in the middle of a yard. This rabbit comes out and just kind of like stands right in front of her and just kind of walks slowly. And Sadie, you can kind of see this thought bubble come up in her head. She's like, it's not worth it. I was like, I feel you, girl. Like, I get it, okay? It's not worth it. It's his desire is no longer certain. He's painting this picture, okay? The older we get, listen, we're getting older, and our bodies are reminding us of that every single day. I love to work out. I've kind of quit getting stronger. I'm just like slowing down the progression for which I get weaker, okay? He's just reminding us every day, like our bodies, they're just breaking down. I remember like 7 or 8 years after we got married, walking out of the shower, Ashley walked in. She saw me there in all my glory, and she just started laughing out loud. I'm just like, that is not what you want to hear. But it's just this reminder, okay, we're not who we are, okay? Our bodies are breaking down. They're deteriorating, and it's heading towards something. It's heading towards something, and this is what he says. He says, then people go to their eternal home. Okay, we're just slowly breaking down. He says, then people go to their eternal home. And this is kind of something Solomon's different is doing here. Okay, he's been talking a lot about life under the sun, life on this earth, but he's starting to talk about, hey, life beyond this life. And he says, we're going to break down. We're going to die. Our day here is going to end. He says, then we're going to go to our eternal home. And you have an eternal home. And he didn't understand what all of that meant at the time, but God took care of that for us. Okay, God, he wanted that home to be with him. Okay, for us to be with him for eternity, but our sin was going to keep that from happening. So he sent his son, Jesus, to this earth. Okay, he lived a life that we couldn't. He died on the cross for our sins. He rose again from the dead 3 days later so that through trust in him and faith in him, we could have forgiveness of sins and our eternal home could be with God. And he took care of that. And he says, hey, we have an eternal home. It's either eternal home with God, if you put your trust in Jesus, or it's eternity without him. Okay, it's one of those two, but we have an eternal home. It says, in light of that, where'd I go? We turned pages. Okay, the eternal home, and it says, after that, he says, and mourners go about the streets. And mourners he's talking about our funeral. Okay, he's talking about their funeral. He says, mourners go about the streets. Well, here's what's going to happen. We're going to die. Okay, people are going to come to our funeral. They're going to cry. They're going to dry their tears. They're going to look at each other and say, do you want to go to Chewy's? You know? I mean, that's going to happen. He's like, the mourners, they're just going to walk about the streets. They're going to go on about their life. He says that's where this thing is heading. That's where life is heading. And so what do we do because of that? Because we know that this life is going to end. He says, remember him. Verse 6. Remember him. Center your life around Jesus. Center your life around your Creator. Again, before. While you still have time. Before the silver cord is severed and the golden bowl is broken. Before the pitcher is shattered at the spring and the wheel is broken at the well. This is just references to our death. He says, do it before while you still have time, while you still have opportunity. He says, and the dust returns to the ground. That's you. That's me. Okay, we're going to turn to dust. We're going to return to the ground that it came from. And the spirit returns to God who gave it. That's also you. That's also you. He's saying, hey, this life isn't going to last. But this life isn't all that there is. Okay? You were made for eternity. You were made for eternity. So he says, hey, if you want to live a life that's less than regret, he says, invest in that life. Invest in your eternal life, this life that Jesus purchased for you. Live your life in light of eternity. This life won't last. But listen, you're made for more than this life. Trust, so remember your Creator. And live your life in light of eternity. Every decision that you make, okay, to know and follow Jesus, 100 million, billion, trillion years from now, that is a decision that you will not regret. So he says, live for that day. Live for that day. Prepare for the day that this life is gone. You know, if Solomon was here and if he was standing in front of us this morning, I think this is what he would say. He would say, hey, don't wait to be who you'll wish you had been. Don't wait to be who you wish you had been. Hey, whatever your life has been up to this point, start today. Start today. Start today making those decisions. Listen, because who you want to be, it's not something that magically appears in the future. It's something that's built out of the decisions that we make today. So start today. Don't wait. Don't wait to be the person that you'll wish you had been. Make those decisions. Enjoy what God has given you. Okay, remember your Creator while you can, and prepare for the day that this life is going to be gone. Don't wait to be who you'll wish you had been. Hey, remember, we're closing this. Remember Alfred? We'll talk about at the beginning. Alfred saw his own picture saw his own obituary. Well, he woke up and he saw his picture, and next to it the phrase, "The merchant of death is dead." Okay, and that shook him. Okay, when you see that, he just saw that was going to be the final word on his life. The merchant of death is dead, and he just kind of saw that, and he wrestled with that. He's like, man, I don't want that to be true of me. And this was kind of later in his life. He says, I don't want that to be the final word on my life. So that day, Alfred, he made a decision. He says, I want my life to not be remembered for death and destruction. I want it to be remembered for peace. So he just kind of made a decision. He started to leverage his life, and he started to leverage his resources, not toward destruction and death, but toward the promotion of peace in this world. So much so that before he died, he actually rewrote his will, and he had all of his vast resources, dedicated toward the establishment of this prize that would go every year to people who most signified the promotion of peace in this world. And right before Alfred died, he told a friend of his, he says, I so desperately, I don't want to be remembered for death and destruction. He says, I want to be remembered for peace. And he is. Alfred's full name, if we think of him, we don't think of him as the merchant of death. Alfred's full name was Alfred Nobel. Alfred Nobel. When we think of Alfred today, we think of the legacy that he had, an investment he had, and the award that is given every year in his name to the person or man or woman in this world who most promotes peace, the Nobel Peace Prize. Alfred, he didn't let regret get the final word on his life. And wherever you're at today, you don't have to either. Make those decisions today. Don't wait to be the person you wish you had been. Make the decisions, the investments that we need to be that person that we want to be remembered and not have the regrets when we're done. Don't wait to be the person you wish you'd been. Let me pray for us. Father, thank you just for these words of wisdom from Solomon, this man who really lived this out. A man who had every opportunity before him and found himself at the end of his life with a lot of regrets. And Father, I pray this morning that we would learn from his wisdom. God, that we would view today as the last day, that the day that we can make decisions to leave the legacy and be the people that we want to be when this life is over. God, give us courage to make changes that we need to change. And God, I pray that you would give us just the faith to start now. God, I pray that tomorrow morning would be different for a lot of us, that we would make some small, simple decisions to enjoy this life. God, to center our life around you and to make some investments that are going to last for eternity. Give us courage. Give us faith to do that. Thank you for Jesus, who gives us the strength for that to be possible. We pray all of this in his name.